This week on the show, eBay introduces their new advertiser dashboard, but is it really an upgrade? Mercari's got a new partner, and I've got a couple of shipping updates you need to know about. What is up, Galaxians? Welcome to episode number 255 of the Galaxy Cities Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. My name is Ryan, and I'm going to be your host. We've got some interesting stuff going on over at eBay, a quick update from Mercari, and a couple of interesting shipping updates that you're definitely going to want to be aware of, so you want to stick around for all that. At the end of the show, of course, I'll have the What Sold recap with, I don't know, man, maybe 12 or 13 items. Nothing nearly as exciting as last week, but some cool stuff nonetheless. I will, as always, leave a timestamp in the show notes and the video description down below if you want to go to a particular part of the show. With that out of the way, let's get into this reselling news.
News updates.
So eBay rolled out their new advertising dashboard, which is something they've been talking about since kind of the summer seller update and the summer seller check-in. So eBay's new ads dashboard promises intuitive design and advanced tech, but sellers say they're seeing less transparency. So what's going on here? This article was updated since it first came out with even less transparency than was originally thought to be going on here. So a seller in the eBay community brought to light another troubling change towards less transparency in the new ad dashboard. It's hard to say if this is something that just hasn't happened yet, or if this is a deliberate deletion of something that was available before. I guess time will tell. But sellers no longer have visibility as to whether ad fees were triggered by a direct click on a promoted listing or what eBay calls halo attribution from clicks on other promoted items. On the new advertising dashboard for a promoted listing general campaign, which is the new terminology for the old promoted listing standard, how do I find the direct sale or halo say attribution on that sale? I downloaded the available report and did not see the info. The user goes on to say, this morning I used the message option on the eBay Facebook page to get an answer to my question regarding a report that I could use to see where the sale came from. And in testing the available reports, it was determined that this information is no longer available. Bummer. So much for this little breadcrumb of transparency. If you're not familiar, eBay introduced what they call halo attribution in early 2023, which of course massively expanded the number of sales that may have ad fees assessed to include when a buyer clicks on a promoted listing ad for one item and then goes on to purchase another item from your store that is also enrolled in promoted listing campaign anytime within 30 days, even if they never saw an ad for that actual item. So there are two types of promoted listing click that you pay for. One is a direct click on the item, whatever the widget is, the book, whatever, and they go and they see that item and they buy that item. The other is they click that book and they decide that they don't want that item, but they decide to go ahead and look around your store at any time over the next 30 days, and they buy something else that also happens to be promoted, even though that's not the ad they saw. eBay still gets paid. Interestingly, if you happen to be a member of eBay's affiliate program, I think they call it eBay Partner or something like that, that cookie, if someone clicks your link there, that's only good for 24 hours, not 30 days. eBay gives themselves a lot more credit than they give their affiliates. Anyway, at that time, eBay also included a report that allowed sellers to see which fees were being attributed as either direct or halo, but that report is not available on the new dashboard. It's kind of hard to see in this image, and I will link to these articles in the show notes and the video description down below, as always. So if you want to go look at this yourself, you can do that. But the new dashboard just simply does not have that link anywhere on it. So while eBay is no longer directly linking to that report, the old link does still appear to be active, and it still works for now. If you navigate it to it directly, there is a link to that here. I tested it. As of the time of recording, it does in fact still work. Sellers should probably bookmark that link if you want access to it for as long as possible. Of course, there's no telling how long eBay will leave it active if their intent is to remove the visibility of that data in the new experience. Now, eBay has redesigned this ads experience for sellers, promising what they said was intuitive navigation, more advanced technology, and that it will simplify advertising experience, increase listing visibility, and ultimately lay the foundation for stronger sales velocity and continued business growth. Does it really do that? This experience, as we said, was first announced as part of the Summer Seller Update. It's officially rolling out now, and it's not great. Not to spoil the lead, but the first thing that stands out, according to this article, is that despite all the promises of simplification and intuitive navigation, the dashboard is busy, confusing, and, as just noted, provides even less transparency than the old experience. The Seller Update announcement had claimed that sellers would have access to real-time performance data, which certainly, this article continues, sounded intriguing given previously all reports carried a caveat that the data was reported in quote-unquote near real time, but sellers would need to allow approximately 72 hours to reconcile. The new report, unfortunately, not only does still show that same caveat, they've now added the following verbiage, although some ad types might require more time. They're not specific about which ad types those are. I don't know if that's offsite ads that might have a longer lag. It's not clear, but they've allowed themselves, as we talked about last week, by being kind of intentionally vague, they've left themselves a lot of wiggle room to come back and attribute a sale to a advertising click. So, and again, you have no way really to go back in now, especially if they delete the old report that is still active, to see where this thing came from. So not only is it's disappointing, this article says, that eBay has failed to actually provide the real-time data they promised, leaving the reconciliation window open to a more vague timeline also allows them to make adjustments down the road. This means that sellers could see sales that were originally labeled organic changed to promoted and charged a fee well beyond that 3-day time frame that had previously been applied. This reporting also says sellers will be able to easily analyze campaign performance and make informed adjustments rather, to help improve sales. There's again a graphic of what the old report looked like, and everything was essentially on one screen. Now, impressions, clicks, and sales are selected from a drop-down menu, with each displaying a bar graph rather than a line chart, which makes it more difficult, of course, to track the patterns and trends of these important metrics over time, especially since they're not all on the screen at the same time. You can't see, is one leading to the other? Is more clicks leading to more sales? Is more impressions leading to more clicks? How is it all stacking up? You've got to look at them all separately. And I guess in theory, you got to make yourself some notes and try to sort out how that is all correlating. So the new report, while you could, I guess, make the argument that it's a little prettier, maybe a little more pleasing to the eye, it's not really as informative as the previous report was. Additionally, they've changed the date ranges and the data availability for these reports that results in less granularity and the ability to compare day-to-day results. Previously, all reports showed the data broken out by each individual day within whatever time period was selected. Now the reports only show stats for 7 or 14-day time frames. And if you go out to 31 days, it changes the chart literally to every other day with no way to drill down to the missing days. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. If I want to see my data, I want to see every day. I want to see every single day broken out, so I can see, is Monday a better day than a Tuesday, or whatever the case is. And now this report lumps those days essentially into groups of 2 days listed as 1 day. It's a very, very difficult report to really glean much useful information from. At 90 days, it changes to a weekly stat. So the ad performance and campaign performance reports follow the same pattern, which not only reduces the visibility and granularity that sellers used to have, but it's also causing a lot of confusion among sellers who had their reports on the default 31-day view and couldn't figure out why the numbers didn't match their actual sales. So if you're one of those, like I am, that actually pays attention to this stuff on an ongoing daily basis, this report now changing to combining 2 days into a 1-day view on this graph makes it very difficult to tease out, without, again, taking extra steps, what actually is going on with your ad campaigns. It's a really strange setup. I don't know who at eBay would have thought that that was a great idea. Again, I try not to be too cynical, but man, this last month has been rough. The writer says, I can only conclude either everyone involved in this design has never actually used the product, or eBay is well aware that this is a downgrade which only serves to make ad performance less transparent and near impossible to track, while gaslighting sellers all the way to the bank. So let me know if you've looked at these new reports. What do you think? I've looked at them. I'm not, again, they aesthetically, sure, they're probably a little easier to look at, but they are not giving me the information that I want in the way that I need it to be able to actually make those informed decisions that eBay said we were going to be able to use these reports for. So not a great start for these new reports. Moving on, this is kind of a weird one. This popped up mid last week. Mercari has partnered with a company called Beano's, I think that's how it's pronounced, to bring Japan inventory to U.S. shoppers, which on the face of it sounds kind of interesting. Mercari is opening up direct from Japan shopping to the U.S. market with new Beano's International Fulfillment Partnership. Buyers on the Mercari U.S. site will now see items from Japan sold by Beano's included in search, with the option to filter results just to Japan to see all that inventory, or to U.S. only if they just want to exclude those items. Here's how it works. Items you buy from Beano's were originally listed outside the U.S. by people just like you. So this is sellers on Mercari Japan. There's a good chance, they say, you'll find unique or discounted treasures that are hard to find stateside. Beano's acts as the seller and takes care of all the international shipping logistics. The seller in Japan ships the item to one of Beano's warehouses, where it's inspected for damage and prepared for overseas delivery. And then they are the ones that ship it to you. So kind of like eBay's international shipping program. They're a clearinghouse for items purchased on Mercari US, but sourced actually in Japan. Beano's, they say, can answer most questions about items. Try writing to them if you would like they are any other sellers. They say internationally shipped items to the U.S. site will appear as sold by Beano's when an item is purchased. A seller in Japan ships the item there, and it will be inspected before it's forwarded. The item cost includes inspection, warehouse handling, and importing the item from Japan to the U.S. As the item is shipped internationally, shipping, of course, are higher than domestic orders, and we're going to get to that in a minute because it is a pretty big number. To protect the buyers from damaged or not as described items, Beano's is going to check that the item is as described in the listing and photos. Items that are found to be not as described or prohibited to ship to the U.S. will be flagged, and the buyer will be refunded in accordance with Mercari's standard return policy. So that all sounds good. There's a link to the FAQ here if you want to go read about it. This is when the headline first popped up in another site, it talked about international shipping. And I was like, oh, great. Mercari is going to allow us to ship internationally. No, that's not actually what this ended up being, but whatever. It's still kind of interesting. Items that ship from Japan, they say, will have an international shipping tag near the item price, as well as disclosure in the From section under delivery details. So again, pretty good transparency on what's going on here, with the possible exception, I guess, of the shipping cost. This, of course, is likely an attempt to boost gross merchandise volume to improve sales on the site, which are down and have not really bounced, even though they made all those changes to fees and so on. But here's the interesting part. For every item a user looked at, it's coming to $64 for shipping. Now, I know international shipping can be expensive, but if you're looking at a $15 US item and $64 for shipping, and that's before Mercari's fees go on it, I would think it's probably going to be a non-starter for a lot of people. They also apparently do not combine shipping at all, even though it seems to be a proxy. Not sure how this is going to make sales, considering either sellers upping the price above its original Mercari JP listing or the shipping. Another user said, all these Japan listings pop up is so annoying. Shipping is $64 on top of all the Mercari fees. Pass. Too bad, another one said, about the absurdly high shipping fees, likely most eaten in fees to this Beano's fulfillment company. That is probably true. They got to make their money somewhere. But I'm with those users. I would not expect that for $34 you're going to see a lot of take on this. So you can let me know what you think of that. If you've changed your sorting, if you're a shopper over there and decided to weed out all those Beano's items. I haven't looked, but yeah, $64. I'm out. Thanks. So Mercari also sent out an email that it had a couple of interesting things in it. So if you ship with Mercari, you know they have their own prepaid labels, and you probably also are aware that they don't directly correlate with USPS shipping rates. They have their own arrangements with shippers, UPS, FedEx, and United States Postal Service, and they have their own kind of rate tables that do not match what the post office or UPS has. And sometimes it's a better deal and sometimes it's not, but it does allow them a little bit of flexibility. As we've talked about over the last, whatever it's been, couple of months, as of this recording, new USPS rates went into effect. There were some price increases, particularly on media mail and some other things that have happened over the last couple of weeks. Mercari's message said, save with Mercari prepaid labels. Galaxy, that was an email to me. So, hi, Galaxy CDs. Hi, Ryan. Sometimes I am so stupid. Anyway, USPS rates are increasing this July, but when you use Mercari prepaid labels, you keep our great rates until 2025. So they are not passing along any portion of this July price increase, which is good news. Be sure to maximize your sales and profits and update your listings. This was the super interesting nugget in this. They also announced, USPS did, a stricter package enforcement related to last mile services. So this is things like the FedEx Smart Post and the UPS Sure Post, where an item goes through one of those services first, and then the last bit of delivery is handled by the post office. This article, or this email, said starting August 1st, UPS Sure Post and FedEx Smart Post packages incorrectly shipped at United States Postal Service locations will be confiscated and destroyed by the United States Postal Service, and you will not be eligible for Mercari shipping protection. That is a big, big change. So previously, particularly with FedEx, the local post offices and the postal system in general seemed to be reasonably forgiving. There could certainly be some time delays if you had this Sure Post or Smart Post package and you took it to the wrong place. You're supposed to take it to UPS or to FedEx, but if you took it to the post office, it seemed like most of the time they would eventually figure it out and the item would get sorted and it would get to wherever it was supposed to go. It almost inevitably took longer, but it got there. This article, this email says starting August 1st, that is no longer going to be the case. If you drop an item at one of their locations incorrectly, they are going to seek and destroy. Again, diligence and attention to detail is going to be very important. If you use either of these services, make sure that you don't accidentally lump it in with your regular U.S. mail stuff and drop it off at the post office, because it is very unlikely that it is going to get where it's supposed to go. And Mercari says they are not going to protect you if you made that mistake. This article on Value Added Resource says that USPS is ending support for FedEx ground economy drop-offs starting July 14th, which is today, day of recording. So there's a little bit of discrepancy between the two dates. Mercari says this isn't happening till August 1st. This article says that, at least in the case of FedEx, it's going into effect today, Sunday. So by the time you see this, this will have gone into effect already. USPS is ending support for drop-offs of FedEx ground economy shipments effective July 14th, according to announcement. So maybe that just gives you 2 weeks where if anything has been dropped off, they're not going to destroy it. I don't know. It's not super clear. I wouldn't do it. I would say starting today, starting Monday, if you're using one of these two services, you better make sure that you're taking the item where it actually belongs if you want it to get there. FedEx Ground Economy, which was previously called Smart Post, is a cost-efficient shipping option for low-weight, low-value, and non-urgent shipments that leverages USPS network, like I said, for that what they call last-mile delivery in some areas. While they may still be handling some packages in transit or some parts of delivery for this service, they are now making it clear that shippers are no longer welcome to drop these packages off at USPS locations, warning again that packages left will be seized and not forwarded to the intended recipient or to a FedEx facility. This update appeared over on eBay. So they're talking about it as well. So be aware, again, if you use FedEx, what was it, SurePost, or the UPS version of that, where last mile delivery is handled by the post office, do not take it to the post office because it will not get where it's supposed to go. That's a big one. I hope you are aware of that, and I hope it doesn't come back to bite anybody. So just pay attention to your shipping labels. Those are pretty easy to identify as opposed to regular labels because they will actually have both UPS or FedEx and USPS barcodes on them, scannable barcodes. So they're pretty easy to tell that they're not just one or the other. I've only used the service once or twice, but just be aware of it. Your packages are going to be destroyed. Speaking of destroyed, my sales last week were pretty bad. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. I jinxed myself 2 weeks ago. I had my best week ever in my 5 years of doing this. And last week was arguably, if not the worst, one of the worst. But I did have a pretty hefty number of items in that kind of $20 to $80 range that I wanted to share with you. So let's get into this, what sold. So it was particularly slow on eBay. If you follow me over on Instagram, I always post on Saturday what I did. And last week it was, I don't know, almost 100 items, 97. This past week it was like 83. So significantly off. All of that drop essentially was eBay. I actually had one of my best weeks ever on Etsy. Mercari actually was a pretty decent week as well relative to what it normally does, but eBay was way, way, way off. Anyway, getting into some of these books that sold over the last couple of days. Far and Near, Stories of Japan, China, and America by Pearl S. Buck. This was an ex-library hardcover published back in 1947. It sold for $20.99 plus shipping. The order total was $27.35. I paid $4.53 in fees, plus, of course, shipping. This was part of a big lot of books that I bought for what worked out to about 16 cents a piece. I think it was close to 3,000 books that I bought from actually a friend of mine. So my cost of goods sold, 16 cents plus the fees. Total costs, $11.05, led to a net profit of $16.30. This item also on eBay. I talk about yearbooks pretty regularly. Here's one. Fairmont East High School, 1976 Falcon yearbook from Kettering, Ohio. Had this listed, I think, for $24.99. I received an offer on eBay of $21 plus shipping, which is what I shipped it out for. Fees were $3.65 plus the promoted listings general fee of $2.34. My cost of goods sold on this, I picked this up at an estate sale, probably 2 months ago for $2 American. Total cost $16.19, so a $21 sale netted me $13 and a penny. Two old books that I've had for quite some time as part of the big 15,000 book lot from a couple of years ago. Chronologies in Old World Archaeology, Volumes 1 and 2. This was written by Robert Eric. This was a third edition, so this wasn't a first edition set of books. I had these listed, I think, for a fairly high price because they were fairly unusual, but they've been around so long. They were part of a clearance I'm running right now, so they were listed for $25.20. I received an offer of $21, which I went ahead and took. The buyer paid $12.32 in shipping, so the order total was $35.53. I paid $5.18 in fees, no ad fee. Shipping cost, I was able to ship these using Ground Advantage Cubic despite the price increase that went into effect on July 1st for $7.27, so I made about $5 on the shipping, which was nice. Cost of goods sold on these two books was 4 cents a piece, so 8 cents total, meaning on a $21 sale, I actually netted $21.79. That's not bad. Now, of course, the buyer paid shipping, so that extra margin came from making a little bit of money on the shipping. But the item price at $21 and the net profit at $21.79 is a equation I will take every day. Continuing on eBay, Contemporary Metal Home Furnishes by Donald Lux and Edward Towers. This was a 1957 first edition hardcover in its dust jacket. This was about how to make contemporary, for the time, 1950s era, metal furniture. It was a really interesting old book. Had it listed for $24.99, sold on an outbound offer for $21.24 plus shipping. I paid $4.09. This is one, it's an interesting one. I guess I'm not completely sure how I feel about it, but the potential buyer had clicked on one of my promoted listings and either added this to their cart or watched it. And I sent out my outbound offer because it popped up in my offers, and I still had to pay the ad fee, $2.19. Cost of goods sold was 91 cents on this item, so my total cost $13.34. A $21.24 item netted me $14.05. First sale of the week over on Etsy. My daily reading from the New Testament, written by Father Stedman, or compiled by Father Stedman back in 1941. This was the Catholic Society, if I remember correctly, of Montreal. This was a Canadian version of this book. You see a lot of these New Testament daily readings from this Father Stedman that were published by Catholic book publishers out of Chicago. This one was from Canada, which made it a little more interesting. Normally, those things go for $12, $14, $16. This one I listed for $24.99. I'm still running my 10% off sale over on Etsy. So this sold for $22.49 plus shipping. $2.82 in fees. My cost of goods sold on this was $1 at a state sale a couple of weeks ago. Total cost $9.36. So a $22.49 sale netted me $18.67. Like I talk about all the time, these old, small, kind of antique and vintage religious books and tracts, I almost always pick up. They're obviously, $25 sale isn't huge, but you sell enough of these in the course of a week, it actually works out pretty good. A couple more of these I've talked about over the last couple of months. The Gwen Frostic woodcut art poetry books. That's a mouthful. These were published in Benzonia, Michigan. Picked these up as part of a big estate buyout. I'm into them for 50 cents a piece. So these two books cost me $1. They both sold for $12.99, less my discount on Etsy. So $23.38. Just $2.98 in fees. My dollar cost of goods sold meant a $23.38 sale, netted $19.40. I really like these Gwen Frostic books if you can find them. They consistently are $12 to $30 items. They're not very common. They're hard to find. They've been reasonably quick flips. I've had these probably less than 6 weeks, and I've sold almost all of them now. The sale also on Etsy, The Count of Luxembourg by George Edward and Harold Simpson, an illustrated hardcover. I want to say this was from the early 1900s. Listed for $24.99, sold for $22.49 plus shipping. Fees to Etsy, $2.90. Shipping cost, $4.87. This was part, again, of that big 15,000 book lot, so my cost of goods sold was just 4 cents. $22.49 with a net profit of $19.55. Back over to eBay. Silent Spring by Rachel Carson. There's a ton of these out there, but this was the 25th anniversary edition, and it was in pretty good shape. This was also the 16th printing of this 25th anniversary edition. So a first printing of this, I hesitate to guess what it might even be worth, because this thing was listed and sold for $24.99. So be on the lookout for that. Plus shipping. Fees were $4.77 plus the promoted listing general fee of $2.60. Total costs $15.80. $24.99 sale led to $16.71 in profit. What do you know? Mercari on the board with something. I've never known how to pronounce this. You can help me out. Goethes, Faust, parts 1 and 2, published by J.M. Dent, part of the Everyman's Library series from 1912. Leather-bound book in reasonably good condition. This was part, again, of the big antique buyout that I did, so I'm into this for 91 cents. It sold on Mercari for $25 with free shipping. As you may recall, I just add the price of shipping into that because I do my own shipping over on Mercari. No fees. Remember, Mercari has added those fees now to the buyer rather than the seller. So this $25 sale essentially cost me $4.13 in shipping plus my 91 cents cost of goods sold. Customer did pay sales tax of $1.50. $25 led to a profit of $19.96. Back over to eBay. William Boyd Hopalong Cassidy, Knight of the West, Mario DeMarco. I talked about this book, I think, in the Wednesday Live. So I use this as an example of the AI and how it does creating those item descriptions. So this book sold, had it listed for $34.99, sold on an outgoing offer for $29.74 plus shipping. I paid $5.28 in fees, $2.54 in the promoted listing general fee. Cost of goods sold was $1. I picked this up at an estate sale almost a year ago. This would be one that probably next month will be in my clearance sale. So, well, it won't be now because I sold it, but it would have been. Own it for $1. So total cost $15.32. A $29.74 sale led to $20.92 in profit. Continuing on eBay, another book from that 15,000 book lot, The Gift That Just Keeps Giving, Glad Adventure by Francis Bowes Sayer, a 1957 first printing illustrated hardcover with its dust jacket. Nice book in reasonably good condition. Had it on sale for $31.49, which is what it sold for, plus shipping. Again, I paid $5.65 in fees, $2.73 in the promoted listing fee. Again, that whopping 4-cent cost of goods sold, $31.49, led to a net profit of $23.07. Continuing on eBay, this is a book that I picked up at another estate buyout that I did. West Virginia Beauty Familiar and Rare by Steve Shaluta and Jean Mosier. This was published back in 2010, hardcover in its dust jacket, big kind of coffee table sized book. I sold this on a best offer of $32. Again, fees of $5.92, a promoted listing fee of $2.87, plus, of course, shipping paid. $32 led to a net profit of $21.57. I paid $1.64 on average. Again, like I talked about last week, when I do a bulk buy, I just take the total amount that I spent and divide it by the number of books that I bought, and this ended up being $1.64. Back over to Etsy for a pretty nice sale. The Blythe Girls, Margie's Secret Mission by Laura Lee Hope. This was a Grosset and Dunlap hardcover from 1926. Pretty difficult to find book. I had it listed for $59.99. It sold with my 10% off offering for $53.99. Fees to Etsy, just $5.89. Plus shipping, again, part of that 15,000 book lot. So 4 cents cost of goods sold, a $53.99 sale. Led to $48.06 in profit. You can see why I like selling on Etsy. Their fee structure, despite all the complaints about the fees over there, is much, much better than eBay, unless you get caught up in that 15% offsite ad fee. And last sale, your flip of the week. This also over on Etsy. Life or Death in Luzon, 30 Years with the Philippine Headhunters by Samuel Kane. This book was from the early 1900s. In reasonably good shape. This was also from that big 15,000 book lot. So my cost of goods sold, just 4 cents, listed for $79.99. This book sold for $71.99 plus shipping after the discount. My fees were $7.75. Shipping $4.87, cost of goods sold 4 cents. Total cost $19, $71.99, led to a net profit of $64.20, which is not too shabby. I will definitely take it. So again, it was not a fantastic week. Dollar volume was down, transaction volume was down, but at least there was some interesting stuff there. So hopefully you got something out of that. Again, if you missed my show, the other big news this week that we really didn't talk about today was the updates over at Etsy. I did do a special separate episode on that on Tuesday evening. If you haven't caught that, I will leave a link in the show notes and the video description down below, so you can kind of get a feel for what my thoughts were on that update. Not to spoil the lead, but I was not particularly knocked out. I think they're good in principle, but I'm not sure how well they can be implemented and used by Etsy. Time will tell how that goes. Please feel free to share any comments or thoughts in the comment section down below. If you're listening to the podcast, you can, of course, always email me at galaxycds@gmail.com, or you can DM me over at Instagram at GalaxyCDsRocks. Always love to hear from you. If you have any questions, feel free to submit them. We're due for another live Q&A here over the next couple of weeks, so be on the lookout for that. Also, I don't have a link for this yet, but on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, the 17th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, I will be on the Hump Day Hangout with Regina and Derek. I believe it's going to be on Derek's channel, but I won't swear to that. I don't have a link for it yet. I will leave links to both of their channels in the show notes and the video description below. So if you're not doing anything Wednesday evening and you can't get enough of me or them, they're fun. They have a great show. I was on it. Gosh, it's probably been a couple years ago now. So it's a good time. So if you're not doing anything, grab your beverage of choice and come hang out with us for about an hour on Wednesday evening. Hopefully you got something out of this episode. If you did, please do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button on YouTube. It helps the channel immensely, more than you know, and it makes me feel good in my heart. Please feel free also to subscribe or follow the podcast if you're not doing that already. And of course, share this with any of your other reselling friends who might find it useful. That, my friends, is going to put a wrap on this show. As always, thank you for coming and spending a little bit of time with me. And now it's time to sell. Thanks, guys. You have been listening to the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you again next time.